that the touted change from the Obama administration or the Obama election campaign has been negated by the instantaneous appointment of all of these Council on Foreign Relations people that are all in-depth and deep insiders and deep establishment people. So they're not about to change anything at all. And their whole goal and reason for existence is to prop up the old regime, which is currently dying. And so, as far as I can see, in the data we've got now, there's nothing to suggest that the Obama administration will produce a personality in the form of President Obama that will be anything other than a Hoover-style failure.
Well, that'll be interesting to kind of watch how this goes as far as the government is concerned, and you know, the placement of the people and all of the bodies that we have that have been created over the next couple of years due to all the changes that are coming up. So it'll be real interesting to see how this plays itself out and if it actually creates any language for that, specifically for the administration or for the...
I'm assuming, well, we get shifts all the time in our general large language patterns. So, for instance, at the moment we have this entity called Bushista, which has been dying off for the last couple of years. Presumably will just simply fade into the distance here. And it represented all things Bush and Bush-related. We have yet to have that replaced, but I'm assuming we will get some kind of an Obama flavor there, whether it comes out as a Lincoln-esque style combination of, fierce fellow trying to maintain the Union against incredible odds is going to be hard to say. But at the moment, most of the things that we're showing seem to suggest that their moves in early, up through March, and in March we're going to get another clear linguistic indicator that things are absolutely horrible economically. So however bad it is in January and February, wait for March. And when they do things, when the government does things in March, and by the government I mean the Obama administration and the people that are pulling his strings, and those strings that he pulls, they will be making a whole series of moves that it will not be until late August that it's apparent that all of those were huge mistakes and failures. So it's going to compound some of the problems.
And when we come back, because we're going to take a long break here in just a few minutes because we've got some new affiliates coming on board at the top of the hour. But when we come back, I certainly want to chat with you a little bit more. We'll get some more into your reports. But for the rest of you and for you, Clif, sit back, relax. We'll be back in about 5 minutes with more of Journeys with Rebecca. Don't go away. And welcome back to Clif High, who is our guest tonight. Hi, Clif.
Hello.
Did you get a nice little break there?
Got a bit of tea, and I'm doing good, yes.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad. And I do want to make mention that, Clif is with us. He's not feeling really well, so we want to give him some kudos for hanging tough with us here at Journeys with Rebecca tonight. That's very nice of you.
Well, thank you very much. I couldn't disappoint you. And besides which, when you get into the part 2 here, the situation 3 and 4 and 5 years out becomes increasingly grim. This becomes a new responsibility is pushed back on us here to get out as much information as we can that is at least reliable, such that people can start making some reasonable preparations and changes in their lives.
And at least be open to different options that may be available to them.
Which they might not consider if they thought everything was business as usual for the next 10 years or so, yeah.
Exactly, and that's what this has all been about, absolutely. Now, during the break, I had several questions that came up that they wanted, people from the chat box wanted me to address to you to answer. So
sure.
I think we're going to go ahead and start out with that right now. One of them was about the alien wars that you see happening in 2010 and 2011.
Yeah, more 2011 than 2010. Late 2010, maybe December-ish or so, yeah.
Okay, so if you'd like to share that would be great.
We have some curious, we have this entity that we call the Space Goat Farts entity, which is where we shove all of the stuff that's officially denied, such as UFOs, etc., and those things that are just totally unknown, but we have some evidence for, such as, strange energies from space we just don't understand, like GRBs, gamma ray bursts, this sort of deal. And that entity has collected a number of things related to the contact meme. By contact, I mean between humans and space aliens or not from here beings. Whether they come interdimensionally or not is immaterial. And the contact meme has been around with us since 1999 and has continued to grow. It's been really accelerating these past couple of years and pushed out into 2010 starts moving into what we're calling alien wars, because the contact meme itself starts to read as though there is it brings along with it words like contention, confusion, disorientation, conflict, aggression, response, and so on. And so we've labeled it alien wars, but it's really not from here beings and some level of giant confused contention. So the closest we've got to that in human experience is war, and so that's why we put it down there. It does not necessarily at this point mean that we're going to be out there shooting at space aliens in some kind of a grade B science fiction movie, or vice versa. But it might be that we're exposed to, for instance, the idea that there were alien invasions of Earth, 500,000 years ago in some kind of space battle, and we have definitive proof. That kind of thing could produce the sorts of language that we're leading into now. I'm not offering it as the solution, because I think what we're seeing is actually future pending events as opposed to information coming out about something way in the past. It's tricky for us in our work to determine the difference. So if we all of a sudden had the whole populace of the planet thinking in particular ways, they might leak out information, and they're all reacting to a great discovery about an ancient civilization here on Earth. But the language itself would be hard from our forecasting perspective to determine whether we were talking about an ancient civilization or a newly discovered one. And so in our sense now, with the alien wars, it appears as though there indeed will be some level of contact with not-from-here beings, and some of them will likely be exhibiting aggression and may intrude over to actions that we would liken to warfare. But because it's so far out, we don't have a whole lot of granularity for it, and the details we have can be interpreted in a number of different ways, so we're necessarily being vague. It's not like I'm trying to hide anything, it's just that I don't want to take us down a path that won't really materialize.
Right, right. All the information that you need has not been presented yet.
Correct.
Right.
The things that we have underlying it, though, that give us the referential integrity checks, is this huge metadata layer, which is we're calling secrets revealed. And as the federal government of the United States goes through its angst and anxiety and contraction and coagulation and crumbling this year, all kinds of odd little side effects will occur. Some of those side effects will be that the government won't be able to pay people. And a lot of people they're paying now have secrets that they'll say, I can go on out and be a whistleblower and tell everybody, and maybe I can make enough money to pay off my mortgage and keep my family fed for the next year. So I will go and do that since the government can't pay me anymore, and I'm no longer afraid of them killing me for saying what I know. Make sense?
It does, absolutely.
A lot of these people will be talking about UFOs and contact, and pretty soon we're going to see, by pretty soon, maybe end of August or September, something like that, we'll see one or two really spectacular whistleblowers come on out with really cool information, and that'll start a wave. Once it breaks, it'll just keep going. And the contact meme becomes overwhelmed with the amount of stuff coming out and the secrets are revealed all through 2010, and it all warps into this greater social movement that basically can be defined as a revolutionary in nature. And that is to say that we will all decide to reform society. So a revolution may not imply guns and tank battles and Molotov cocktails and that sort of thing. It may be an entirely different kind of a revolution that's never been occurred before, where we have everybody who can get the facts that wants them, and they just go on out and start making different decisions, and all of a sudden society shifts in a radical new way because we're acknowledging all of the stuff that's come out in the secrets revealed. That humans used to live on Mars, and humans used to live on the moon, and that there's crumbled civilizations up there, and that the government has a 80-year history or greater of suppressed science and technology, and pretty soon we just give up on the powers that be and say, no, I'm not going to pay attention to what you guys want. And since they can't pay anybody, a lot of the people that used to work for them don't anymore, and so we reorganize. That's all part of alien wars, so that's all in that big stew.
Wow. As you're sitting here talking, my little brain just goes on fire, and I'm just sitting here thinking about all the things just tonight that we have spoken about. I mean, the potential collapse of the dollar, collapse of the United States, what that financial aspect does to everything.
It ripples through everything. You touch, yeah.
Yeah, and then let's talk about the weather and the changes in that, and just the changes in perspective, and about, these alien wars kind of thing is under that thing. And there are just so many people out in the population in the world today that even presented with any of these ideas, it just makes sense that there's going to be so many people that just absolutely cannot wrap their mind around these changes because they are monumental. They're beyond monumental. I think it lacks a language to
There actually is a specific psychological language for it, and it relates to a condition known as cognitive dissonance. And it boils down to the amount of energy necessary to change your entire universal view in order to accommodate new facts that are presenting themselves versus the amount of energy it takes to harden your old, now non-functional view and refuse to accept the new facts. And many people just do the latter.
So I wonder what that's going to look like. You know, I try to think about what that's going to look like to be side by side with somebody that...
We've had instances where it's described in some detail, actually, and we get into this is an abnormal condition, and the muckers will exhibit this. There will be other common traits among them, many of them basically acting as though these people were on some kind of horse tranquilizer, in the sense that they'll be so disconnected from reality that they won't feel pain, even wounds that would become soon fatal, and they'll just keep on going.
Right. Yeah, and I've actually seen that before. That's a really strange phenomenon as well, as the body and the brain the adrenaline is just going so much that the body doesn't even realize it. It's just a very odd thing. It's a very odd thing too.
And this will be exacerbated. You're talking about all the interconnected links. This whole situation will be exacerbated later in fall as our pharmaceutical delivery system collapses due to the economic problems. And so many people that are on in dependency on particular kinds of classes of drugs, legitimate, authorized, prescribed drugs, simply won't be able to get them.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
And with half the population taking some form of antidepressant or prescription medicine, that's going to cause real problems.
It will, and all that stuff too is all in our drinking waters and stuff. We'll get into that at another time. So the other thing that I wanted to do, speaking of that, is all about the food sources. Wasn't there something that you brought up in one of those reports about our food sources?
We've talked about that quite frequently because that's becoming increasingly a large meme, if you will, that's running through all of our reports, and will become extremely dire later in 2009, as it's discovered, for instance, that many crops are going to fail due to the flooding this year, and already have failed due to flooding last year, and that we're already in a net loss situation relative to the 5 grains that feed the planet, and we're in the process of actually converting from the crumbling old oil-based, dollar-based green revolution, if you will, and bioengineering. All of that is in the process of decaying rapidly. And if we don't take personal responsibility and personal action, we're going to get to a situation where food supplies might be very limited. And so it's going to be necessary for people to be very intelligent about their food choices. And this will become increasingly an issue as we go forward in 2009, and then will simply become a way of life